Got my Plein Pro easel with me. It's the Traveler. It's the latest version, and I am so thrilled about this because it's the easel I've always wanted. As you'll see, everything in here weighs, minus the water and the pigment, only about 8 pounds. And the cool thing is, this pack has straps that you can carry it on your back. It's got a shoulder strap to carry it, and it also has a real nice leather handle if you just want to hold it. And the really cool thing is, I can stick a sketchbook in here, and what I have in here, I can put this on the plane under the seat in front of me, and with a sketchbook I can go on a trip for 2 weeks and have a great time. So I'm going to set this up real quick, and then we'll get started painting. I've got the Plein Pro easel here. It's large enough to handle a 1/4 sheet watercolor. It's got a brush holder that slides out conveniently, and one of the nicest features, it has a quick release on the back, snaps right onto the tripod. So I'm essentially ready to paint. Another feature of the Plein Pro Traveler is this shelf. See, it's well used. Simply slips on the front of the easel. I can use this to hold water, a palette. It's got extra brush holes. Both of these are made of high quality ABS plastic, almost indestructible, but weigh nothing. The easel, as you probably noticed, has a shelf right here, so you can set up your watercolor book or your watercolor support, and you're all set to go. And then I can insert my brushes on the holders. If you'll notice on the shelf here, it's got another hole that you can take a plastic cup, drop it in there as a water reservoir. And the really cool thing about this easel is it has a little indentation hook right here for a second water reservoir, which is really handy, as you know, painting watercolors, because if you need clean water, either because your first batch gets contaminated, or maybe to soften edges, or lay down a wet wash before you paint into it, I have 2 water holders right there that I can fill with water, and they're at my disposal. And again, I want to remind you that the shelf also has extra holes for 8 extra brushes. So you've got whatever you need, you got it right in front of you. I did a quick pencil sketch of the scene in front of me, and it's backlit. The sun's moving pretty quickly, and and the sky is very light and hazy. So what I'm going to try to do is, there's some lighting on the rims of this rock face in front of me, and I'm going to try to use that as sort of a focal point, and try to take advantage of that. I'm going to handle the lighter values first and work my way darker on this one. So right now I'm using new gamboge and a little bit of Venetian red. I think these warm colors are going to come forward. I'm going to add a little bit of cool green with the gamboge and some viridian, just to give it some cool characteristics. Try to get that in before it dries. Soften that edge a little bit, lose a bit of that. Okay, now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay in some distant trees while I got a little bit of dampness left on my mesa. These won't be quite as dark as the foreground trees, and I want them to be kind of loose and disappear a little bit. Let's save a bit of that tree trunk in the foreground too. Then the foreground trees, because they're in the distance. And I want to leave a few untouched spots where the sun is striking off of the rocks. So we're going to exaggerate that a little bit. Cut around my tree. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to silhouette the rock face by painting some of those trees up on the ridge there. And Going back to my flat brush again, I'm going to lay those trees in behind the rock face. Oh, a little ultramarine again and some gamboge. Gives me the effect of some foliage. Let's bring one of these up here and break this plane. Wet. Give some of those a shape. Now I'm going to try to tackle the entire middle ground trees, the ones closest to me, all in one sort of wet into wet passage. And try to keep it simple, knowing that I can go back and add a little more detail. I'll be bringing it down into the foreground of the painting. I painted the foreground a little high intentionally so I would be able to join them together. And I'll cut out a lot of that foreground negatively. But I'm mostly concerned with this major mass of upright shapes right now. So I'm going to again mix up some, part of it'll be, it's kind of a middle to dark value area. And since it's backlit, the tops are lit up a bit, so I'm going to try to simulate that as I paint this in. So now I start to get darker while it's wet. Don't want to wait too long, so we'll just gradually introduce less damp and darker colors. And this will have a kind of randomness to it, but I don't mind. I'm going to let the watercolor kind of dictate what direction I ought to go. I always feel that's the best policy. I'm mixing up some ultramarine blue, a little Venetian red, similar to the ultramarine blue cadmium red mixture that I started the rocks out with. And I'm just going to look for some obvious shadow areas to kind of finish them off. I don't want to make these too complicated either, because if that were the case, it would really make the whole background really frenetic. So I'm more concerned about just kind of shaping them. If you're wondering how you figure out where to shape these things, I always use an old Mark Twain adage: when in doubt, tell the truth. You got a scene in front of you that you can draw on for information anytime you need it. Conversely, as an artist, I don't necessarily feel it's my job to tell people what they already know. So I like to let the water sort of dictate directions I go sometimes. Let me see a few spots I might need to kill, but that's the thing about saving whites. You know, you can I can always choose at any point to dim some of these out. This will help attach the foreground to the background. I don't want to kill all that. There's some real nice color in there. Of course, it gets a little darker at the bottom and on the shadowed side. Once I drop a shadow under that, it'll take its place in the landscape a lot better. And then as a final coup de grace, so to speak, I'm going to do a little splattering to give the foreground some interest. And at that point, I'm going to use some of those foreground colors. It's about as far as I would take this for right now. I always think it's a good idea to take plein air paintings to about 75% of what you feel is done. And I say that because the tendency, and my tendency too, is to overwork paintings because there's so much information and so much data out. You know, there's the flowers, there's the branches, the leaves. So what I do is take it to what I feel is about 75% done, and I'd say 98% of the time when I get back to the studio, the paintings, there's really nothing more to say about it. But at least it leaves me some options for any changes that I want to make. So anyway, that's it up here on the Raton Pass. Enjoy.